This is an alternative and arguably neater finish to the bottom of the facing, where it is folded and felled rather than cross-stitched. I figured out this method from when I saw a tailor press open the seam at the bottom of the facing, so this kind of doesn't need a 5-minute video. Though, with thicker fabrics like tweeds, you don't want to use this method, since it does create a much thicker seam, and over time the small section is liable to cause extra wear on the outside, making it very visible, very obvious. Though with thinner fabrics and fabrics that perhaps fray a bit more, then it's probably the superior option. There is also something to be said for the cross-stitching. While it is clear hand stitching over a raw edge like a hand-sewn buttonhole, it is also a place where we can present hand stitching rather than it being very subtle and hidden. That being said, either way, whatever you use, do like the video. I appreciate it. We machine the lining and the facing together in the exact same way as normal. As usual, we press the fabric and lining into the lining to prevent the whole seam from being bulky. However, before we press the bottom, we can snip into the seam allowance of the facing about 6 to 8 centimeters up from the hem to press this small portion of the seam open. I cut into both the lining and the facing because I'm an idiot. It would be best to only cut the facing at the 6 to 8 centimeter point and press the seam open. Attaching the pieces to the jacket is no different still. I will say that we want to machine over the 2 layers of the facing, so we are catching the seam allowance in the stitch. It is very important that we don't sew through the lining, since we're back tacking on it though. We still need to pull up the lining when we put up the hem. There's no difference in trimming and pressing the seams, folding out like normal as well. Similarly, basting the front edge, then canvassing the facing is all normal. It's all the same, even putting up the hem until we get to finishing, which I don't have footage for. Finding the 2 centimeters above the hem, pulling the stitching between the lining and the facing apart, you will see that the facing produced a straight line into the hem this time, and a folded edge rather than a raw edge. When finishing this jacket, we can fell the folded 2 centimeters when we fell the lining to the hem. We could also fell it before and or after we prick stitch the front edge. Either way though, we have to remember to reinforce the stitching between the lining and the facing, since it isn't back tacked to the bottom.